One thing I remember is things moved so quickly during that summer, and there wasn't a lot of time for planning. Because of this challenging situation, we were all of a sudden 900 people without a building.
Somewhere in August, I think it was 1992, August of 1992, it becomes a sudden realization that we need to start a church, and there could be a lot of people, there might not be a lot of people.
There was no certainty of who was going to be there, and there was no certainty where we were going to be.
People were asking each other, what are you going to do? And people were like, well, I don't know. What are you going to do? And everybody's like, I don't know. Well, what about all the staff? What are they going to do? Well, I don't know. And it was like, well, I guess we'll just wait. And I think
here we were, Walt and Dave and Dan, we're at the park, at Franklin Park. We decided, somehow we communicated.
Potluck.
Here we're at Franklin Park, and there were approximately 900 people at Franklin Park for our very first service.
You had Lewis and Clark for 2 weeks. That's the original plan. Lewis and Clark for 2 weeks, and we'll see what happens after that.
I remember walking and standing in the back and just seeing streams of people pouring in, row after row after row filling in, people just streaming in. It was just, it was mind-blowing.
Unbelievable. Welcome to Faith Bible Church. Are you excited to be here?
Sometime I remember in the early years, we started calling it the wagon train because we were portable, always moving.
It was probably within the first year, because it was an essential part of doing it. There was no way we could do it except by a lot of people kicking in and getting it together.
I think, Dave, you were talking about how mobile everything was, including the office space for the staff.
We knew that there was no permanency to anything that we were doing, not only offices, but we could not stay in school district buildings because they always had a limitation on how long we could be there. So we knew that we needed to we had a destination to go to in terms of a physical place.
I thought originally they told us 12 months, and 12 months came, and they didn't really kick us out, but we knew they were starting to make noises, so yeah, like you said, we had no place to go. I remember when we were here, because we were going to run out of time, that I think Larry was starting to look for facilities.
We were doing searches for land,
and
giant buildings that were empty.
And we were looking and looking, and there was nothing that could hold this size of a group.
We bought the property on Indiana, not knowing for sure what we were going to do yet. But what happened was, as soon as we bought the property, the school district came to us and they said, we were planning on buying that property. How did you get it? And so a team sat down and came up with the thought, okay, let's go to them and negotiate a longer term lease on a school, preferably North Central, in exchange for the building. We got North Central to use for, I think we used it for 3 years.
Yeah, about 2.5 years.
So yeah, so that was really one of the things God did for us, because when we bought that building, we had no idea what the next step was going to be.
No matter what, we couldn't have church in any public school during the month of August. So for the first 4 years, we had to meet at the park if we were going to meet anywhere. Yeah. And so we said, well, let's take advantage of it and use it as a big outreach. So that continued on for a number of years.
As we were looking for buildings, somebody said, well, you raise funds for whatever we're going to do, buy a building, buy a property. So I remember coming in the summer and everybody's like, well, this is a horrible time to do fundraising in the middle of summer when nobody's here. And we asked the congregation, can you just please give? And I believe within a month, we had enough for the down payment on the core property.
There were some big steps of faith along the way. I think in 1994, Slavic Gospel Association and Bob Provost approach us to start a Strategic Bible Institute in Krasnoyarsk, Siberia, which most of us didn't have any idea where that was.
The Russian commitment was huge, and though it was training men, financially, we were asked to step up in faith.
And we didn't have a building. So we were asking the congregation to give $65,000 to a project for missions, and we still didn't have a building, which really blew away the students in Russia. On one Sunday, they had been telling people, we want to give to this is an exciting opportunity. The first Sunday that an offering was made, they raised $32,000. We sent teams of elders and pastors for 2 weeks at a time for 9 months. And then we did Krasnoyarsk a second year, and then went to Novosibirsk and Penza and Kirovo-Chapetsk, and then finally the last one was the Archangel, yeah. So then we broke ground in 1996 on the core property, moved in, I think in February of 97.
It's a wagon train still. All right. Yeah. Welcome, all of you, to this very special night. Do you like our new clothes? Oh, are you excited about this new beginning?
Christ works with flawed and sinful men. He doesn't have anybody else. That's who he's got. So we've had our situations where we've had challenges and difficulty due to our own feebleness, weakness, or flaws. I think of the whole way we started. We started as essentially the church left a church. So even our start was in the middle of a flawed situation, and yet God worked out of that.
It's always in the hindsight is 20/20 when you look back in retrospect. Our pride can cloud our vision and can cause men to do things that, in retrospect, they wouldn't do again.
From 2000 to 2004, we went through, some challenges where the two lead pastors were gone out of the church through difficult circumstances. And those are humbling times, realizing that God can work and does certainly work outside of Faith Bible Church. But there was a level of pride, I think.
I think that's one of the great learnings, is the humility that it takes. Additionally, leadership.
I think one of the things to think about now in that time of God's grace through weakness. So 2000, 2004, we had a time of struggle, and there was an internal turmoil. At the same time, 2005, we planted Christ Our Hope.
Christ Our Hope Bible Church, we start next Sunday, February 20th. It's our first Sunday. We've been meeting for about 5 or 6 months on Sunday evenings, about 15 to 20 families here at Faith. It's been a great joy as they have come together and praying and believing God to do a work there.
So we have another church that is flourishing not far from us, under the leadership of John Smith, one of our guys. We continued on with our Russian Bible initiatives. So there were 3 of the 6 continued on, or others started up. So there were times, and then we continued to train men. And I would say, as a matter of fact, there were 4 guys trained up and sent out before that time, and there are 31 after. So when you think about all of that, it was really just warming up.
I can remember the vision, the heart of training men. It was always the heart. And to be honest, only God can do it. If you would have told me in the 1990s, 35 men are going to be investing across the world, across our country, I would have said no. Maybe 1 or 2 or 3, but 35? That was new for us.
And I don't know if just as absurd or crazy or visionary was, maybe someday we can even house a seminary and train men from here.
And the beauty of all this is that we have known through the 25 years we're so imperfect that serves a perfect God. And yet, even we're imperfect, the bride's imperfect, God works. What I've been so thankful about through the years is that we had a heritage of investing in young people.
It was here at Lewis and Clark that Marilyn Klock and Andy Widman got the vision of writing our own children's curriculum. So that's part of that commitment, that we were training teachers to teach right from the Bible, teach lessons right from the Bible. We were tired of the pre-bought stuff that was okay, and principles that were maybe biblical, maybe not, good moral principles, and we started teaching through the Bible.
Look at our own children and have seen the outcome of that in their own hearts and their own desire to reach out.
One of the things about all of that is you see in children's ministry, King's Kids was a good example, then youth, and then college, there's always been an older generation ready to invest in the next. So youth leaders, King's Kids leaders.
Some people can be committed to a program. I think what you described, Dave, is characteristic of not people loving a program, but loving people.
Loving the people and loving the Word. And so then
sacrificing.
the young people are excited to be with the older people who are teaching the Word, and it begins to stir their hearts. And I mean, it's really it's an incredible thing. I mean, when I think about it, it's one of the more incredible things I can think about that's come directly to my family out of our time at Faith Bible Church.
And I think one of the fruits of that is we are okay with killing programs also. If there's no heart transformation going on, then it's okay. We can set Awana aside for something different if we feel like that's the case, or a harvest festival if that's the case, and we can start something else. And there is a willingness to say, let's try it for a few years, but if we don't see heart transformation, then we're gonna try something else. So we're not sold on programs, but that really key principle. We're gonna keep teaching the Bible, we're gonna keep aiming for heart transformation, and we'll let the structures adapt and change over the years.
And may we always have that open hand in assessing, are we really fulfilling God's will and His priorities?
Yeah, I remember for the first 5 to 10 years of the church, one of Larry Klock's mantras was, no sacred cows.
Yeah.
You know, no sacred cows. We're not going to be locked into just doing the way things we've done just because we've done them.
Here's probably maybe a summary for the 25 years. It showed in the church survey. What are the top reasons why you're at Faith Bible Church? And resounding, teach the Word of God as authoritative, right? It's a family to me, the relationships that are there in the church, and just overall, investment and, the shepherding. It's just a really consistent theme of people at Faith Bible Church.
Fred Williams and Earl Dannon caught the vision to start a training center and a counseling center at Faith Bible Church. I think it was 2007, we invited Lafayette, Faith Baptist Church in Lafayette, to come, and for 3 years they did biblical counseling training, and they brought teachers from all over the country and gave us that basic training, which we've now done our own, and now we're doing the same thing. So that commitment to equipping people for ministry is still vibrant and strong, and it's one of the places where we see the most fruit in evangelism. People from different parts of the city, they don't know they need the gospel to change their life and their marriage and their problems, but the gospel will do that, and that's been really exciting to see.
I think there's a lot of women in the last 20, 25 years in our congregation who have invested into a multitude of younger ladies and have quite a legacy of discipleship investment. And I don't know how many it is, but it's very, very unique. And I know that some of the ladies, there's some of our women who have had 20-year relationships with the people that they've discipled. The young, they're not so young anymore. but they still have that relationship.
And now you watch the Women Digging Deeper series, Job, Revelation. They're taking on really meaty books, but the ladies are growing incredibly. It's because they've really been trained at a pretty deep level biblically.
You know, Spokane's a college town. Gonzaga, Whitworth, community colleges, Eastern Washington, and we are a college town. So let's put some resource to the reality that we're a college town, and let's invest our eldership. And we felt like we needed a double honored guy to get on the campuses with guys like Walt and Dave Gammon and others. And so that started a whole new investment in college ministry.
God's use of Yogi initially, and just his faithfulness, faithful preaching and care for students, opening their home all the time, and then the investment by just a number of people who were serving faithfully in ministry. And then soon after that, the Aspiring Men, formerly called the Men of God, but the Aspiring Men of Training just exploded, where you're now having young people who are saying, I really am in this full-time vocation in ministry, and like you said, then shortly after, streaming to seminary. Probably more than that as well is the impact on college students as they go back to wherever their home churches are. They've been very well equipped, modeled to, hey, this is a kind of church to look for, and how to serve in the church that you go to. So that's probably been the most encouraging part, to just have them set their sights high for their ministry and what their contribution to the church overall is.
We've experimented with lots of different things. VBS, like this year we had 200 kids in VBS, 200 plus, and that's pretty normal. For almost 10 years, we ran Shoot for the Sun, which was trying to take advantage of the basketball culture. And we would have 1,000 people on site to 1,500 people on site for 10 years. There was Awana, Spokane Camp, backyard Bible clubs, different neighborhood outreaches. I think 1997 to 2002 we did Spokane camps. I remember because I was an intern for Spokane camps. Gammon and I ran those, and at that time we were doing short-term teams. So we said, let's make Spokane camp a short-term team. So everybody moved into the church for 2 weeks in the summer, and we ran an outreach camp in Corbin Park. And then I think one of the later years we did 3 sites. 2008, I think we really started the Garland District. Remember we tried that Blue Door Theater, tried Aletheia at the Blue Door Theater, which moved to Willard Elementary really. We started an ongoing relationship. We're seeing a lot of opportunity with that. So I think it was 2010 that UGM opened up the possibility for Union Gospel Mission opened the possibility for us to bring kids to camp. They are happy to have us go into the classrooms, and the principal tells Nathan and I in the spring, go to visit these classrooms, here's the ones I want you to focus on, and just interrupt the teachers, they'll be fine. I think it's unusual to have such a group so responsive to biblical teaching. I have the easiest pulpit for a Bible teacher, because if it's in the Bible, our people want to hear it, and then if it's in the Bible, they're like, that's it, it's good for me. You said that's in the Bible? There it is, and they read the verses with me, we talk about it together, and they said, well, Bible, I think we used to say it a long time ago, but the Bible says it, that settles it.
Asking the eldership of the men that they know that are leading, serving, godly They're parenting, they're faithful, and the whiteboard was completely filled with name after name after name of godly men in the church, and it's overwhelming to see how many men there are in the church who you go. They're growing, they're faithful, they love the Lord, they love their families, and they're wanting to grow.
It's not a church where everybody's happy to show up on Sunday morning and leave. They are wanting more and they're getting more.
And I just think back in 1992, the staff, if you would have asked them, how do we assess how we're doing as a church? And they all would have said back in 1992, heart transformation. Is there heart transformation? And so thankful for the fact that we could say after 25 years, thank you, Lord, by your grace, there's been heart transformation.